All right, guys. Well, welcome to the J Cubed podcast. I'm Watson. Jacob Watson. I'm here with my co-hosts Smith and Jarts.
Yo, I'm Smith.
Is Jarts still here?
I am still here.
Okay.
I just wanted to include
Oh
the record.
my god.
I know
I just
that.
wanted to include
Oh my gosh! I know that we're
records.
separated by quarantine, Jarts, but I still will drive over to your house
I know
and
where
stop
you
you
live.
from doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But what do you guys? How have you guys been? We're all separated by the pandemic. That's why we're recording it this way. But how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I am actually back at my parents' house right now because they left for South Carolina, the Outer Banks. And so I am house sitting for them.
Lovely.
Yes.
How are you, Jarts?
I am doing all right.
Are you feeling good after sitting out in the sun for 3 hours? I assume you were out in the sun.
It was a
Do you want to tell that story? Do you want to tell that story so people can
the short story,
understand
long story
context?
short, is that I was accidentally locked on a second floor patio
Mhm.
when my girlfriend decided to go on a 36-mile bike ride. So she came back 2 hours and 40 minutes after she had left me out there and accidentally locked the door. And she was happily waving to me. And I said, I have been up here for 3 hours. And she's like, I can't hear you. I said, we'll talk when you get up here then. So I spent, it was thankfully it was a cool day today. It was sunny.
Mhm.
It was nice. I
Were
didn't
you
have my phone
immediately
with me.
in the sun? Like, was the sun beating down on you, or was like the building providing some kind of shade?
After about an hour, it was.
Okay, cool.
Oh my god!
I was kind of able to tell. The reason that I was actually a little bit concerned is because, for one, I didn't have my phone or any. I literally just walked out there, t-shirt, shorts, and nothing else to do some work on a smoker. And when I say smoker, I mean not a person, but a appliance. You'd be surprised. I mean, but no, I just went out there to just try to mess with it because it was old to someone, new to me, and tried to get it functional. And then I was trapped. And the sun moved a lot by the time that she was gone. So I was like, man, it feels like it's been like when you don't have a watch and you don't have anything that's like giving you reference of time, when you have nothing to do but pay attention to how far the sun is moving over, you realize that it moves a lot in like 3 hours. Like the shade went from not covering any part of me to covering the entirety of me.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, yeah, there was a lot of realize a lot. Sometimes I feel like it's necessary to spend 3 hours against your will outside of the environment.
I mean, that's basically what tanning is, right?
Yeah.
If you're out there for 3 hours, man, that is some intense tanning.
I don't know. I have no experience with tanning. I mean, I never understood it, and I guess it was kind of pointless for me.
Yeah.
That's funny because you guys can't see me. So I guess if you don't know me personally, I am half African American and half white, so I am inherently tan. That was the joke because
Yeah. There's no visual aspect. You're not gonna get the like video cut of you.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love this video cut of me having my video set open on Discord while you guys both don't. It's a great video. They get to see the Philadelphia Flyers mascot and a telephone.
Oh yeah. Wait, is that what is that? Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how do you not know what your own profile
Oh
picture
no,
is?
I know. I'm gritty. I wasn't sure what
Oh,
Jarts
yeah,
was, but
Jarts's is
upon
literally a
further
foe.
inspection, an old landline fan. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I like how we immediately got completely off the rails on this. For people
I mean,
that,
we weren't ever on rails,
well,
so
that's true. But so we started this podcast because we wanted to, talk about movies and TV and music and really whatever I guess we decide we want to talk about. Um, we figured we'd start with movies. We went ahead and we watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World this week because given the pandemic, there's really no new movies coming out, at least none that we thought would be fun to talk about. So,
yeah, that's the real qualifier there. There have been new movies that have been released, but none of them seemed terribly interesting to watch.
all right. Well,
Yeah,
because what the new ones this week was like
yeah.
what The Invisible Man. It's like, dude.
That's not even new this week, is it? Wait,
Well, it was in
D&D
theaters, but that's the one that came out on DVD this week.
Oh, right.
And then I guess
Yeah,
there was Scoob a couple of weeks ago that came
I've seen
direct to digital. I haven't watched it yet.
I have very strong opinions about Scoob.
I do as well, but I figured I would wait until I watched it to, give my take on it.
It's just as bad as you think it is.
Oh, I'm sure
Wait,
it is.
what is it?
Scoob. It's the new Scooby-Doo movie. Scoob.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan, so I need to watch it. I just haven't had a chance.
I can be our next episode.
Yeah, that's true. We can watch Scoob and then I imagine trash
I
on it.
think one of the things that we could also watch is, well, maybe it's no longer available, but the Parks and Recreations special that they did during quarantine was especially not great.
They did a
Wow.
they did a quarantine special. Hold on, they like released a new episode recently.
Yeah, it was like a special
That
thing
sounds
where it was,
terrible. The concept is bad and it sounds bad.
well, what it was, I don't know. Look, this it's what we can talk about for another day.
All right. I mean,
But
I actually,
we are you what?
I actually really like the idea of maybe talking about some of the quarantine specials that have come out because like Community did a table read of one of the episodes.
Oh, like they just all sat around and like read a script.
Well, like they did a Zoom call and they read one of the scripts for one of the episodes.
That didn't air.
No,
or...
it's one that did air. It was like a reunion type thing. But then they had Pedro Pascal. He did the voice of like one of the people that like one of the extra characters, and I believe he's the Mandalorian, if I'm remembering correct.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's really cool. It's only like a half an hour, but like it was cool to see like Donald Glover and stuff.
It's interesting because a lot of the shows that were kind of released pre-quarantine, like listen, we can talk about Tiger King if you want, but I'm just saying like Tiger King like released, we hit quarantine, and then like everybody got super into Tiger King, and then they released the
Ozark.
Joel McHale.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did like an interview with everybody, and Too Hot to Handle, which is a reality show on Netflix, was also like released during quarantine, and then they had a reunion episode. So I feel like quarantine has given a lot of those shows just kind of extra content because Netflix isn't like filming anything. So they just take a host, give them a mic, and then have everybody get into a Zoom call for like an hour and then call that an episode.
Right. I mean, it's really cool to see. Cool, but like, I guess from an industry standpoint, it's really cool to see how all of these TV shows are trying to adapt to like not being able to shoot.
You gotta have content.
All right. Did you see like American Idol? How they just sent all of the contestants like video cameras and microphones and lighting sets and had them just like shoot their stuff from home.
That seems especially dangerous to me because you are still dealing with like acoustics, right? So like,
well, right, but I guess the idea is that since they all have the same equipment, then it's fair game.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same equipment, and I guess I guess my real point is like if there's somebody in like a really like big house, the acoustics are just going to have to be better than if somebody's in like a little one story like.
Yeah, and like that it's like kind of the case, but it wasn't as bad as you'd think Because like there were
Okay.
people where they would do theirs outside on their porch versus there were people that did them in like a small room.
Yeah,
It just kind
that's
of
fair.
depend.
That's fair.
And since like they were using like a microphone that they were like singing right into, it wasn't too much of an issue.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
But
When you
yeah,
said gave them a microphone, I just imagined kind of like the like a like a boom mic or something.
oh
I guess
no,
I
it
didn't
was
think about like an actual like handheld that like you can just
yeah,
like you got it like right up to your face, and so like your sound is just as good.
yeah. I think it would be cool maybe to touch on some of the quarantine content that's had to come out. That might be a good episode. But I guess that's where the audience could come in. They could let us know what they would like to see us talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch probably anything. Probably anything.
Probably. I will watch. I don't want to say anything. I will
Yeah,
also
that's
watch
fine.
probably anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like it's probably a good point now that we're pretty far into it to maybe talk about the movie that we watched.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question first for everybody. How recently did you finish this movie?
I started watching it last night, but of course I worked this morning, so I had to stop about halfway through, and then I finished it literally about an hour ago.
I finished it last night.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. I got to the house I'm currently at about 3 o'clock. Started it around 4. Finished it around 6.
Yeah.
So
Of course, I've seen this movie.
Pretty fresh.
I've seen this
I've
movie
seen it-
quite a bit.
I have seen it all of twice now.
Okay.
I wanna say.
See, I've seen it at
Was
least
the
4 or 5.
first time that I had ever seen it.
Okay, so I want to say that surprises me, but honestly, like I don't even have room to talk because I've heard about it. But it was oh god, it was
Keeping it in.
it was kind of in the same vein as what Juno for me. Where like I don't know how Michael Cera movies just like evaded me for so long, but they were like I saw a Michael Cera movie until like I moved out and had access to like time on my own to like watch things.
Yeah, that's fair. Mine is less the Michael Cera side because I probably saw Juno the year it came out, like what 2007. I can't remember.
Mhm.
I feel like that's either correct or maybe
It's
a little
close.
late.
It's gotta be close, yeah.
But I didn't think about it until right now, but this is probably the first Edgar Wright movie that I had seen at the time.
Yeah, you know what? That is something that immediately struck me the first time I saw it. Was like I didn't see the title card at the beginning that was like directed by Edgar Wright, and I just watched the movie and I'm like, wow, this editing is like really crazy. And then this time I watched it and I saw the title card that was like edited by or directed by Edgar Wright, is it produced or directed by?
I'm pretty sure he directed it. I know he definitely
Okay.
at least partially wrote the screenplay. It was him and someone else, but I'm pretty confident that he directed it.
Yeah, because like that made sense to me. Because I had seen Edgar Wright movies before I watched Scott Pilgrim for the first time. I'd seen
Yeah.
Baby Driver. I'd seen your Shaun of the Deads, your Hot Fuzzes.
Yeah, he was the director of it.
Does Ant-Man count?
No, because the problem with the Ant-Man is that he was writing that and working on that from like 2004 until he eventually left the project. But at that point, it's hard to tell exactly how much of that movie was Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
I would say the fight scene in the briefcase is probably the most clear example of where that was Edgar Wright.
Yeah, and like so that's the reason I ask is because like if you're unfamiliar to the people who are listening with Edgar Wright, he did Shaun of the Dead, he did Hot Fuzz. He has a very distinct and fast-paced editing style.
Yes.
That is incredibly unique to him. Like nobody else has visuals like Edgar Wright has visuals in a movie.
Yeah, Edgar Wright's easily one of my favorite directors. I think that from an editing standpoint, his movies are pretty much unparalleled.
And it really it shows up in this movie a lot, like very like early. All the like Well, like the first thing that I think happens is like Michael Cera, Scott Pilgrim, whatever. His character hears like a like his doorbell rings. There's a little like
Mm-hmm.
ding dong like visually that like appears behind his head.
Right. And that's something that I definitely think works well with this movie. Is it
Oh yeah,
all of
yeah,
those added, like I don't even text effects and even just some of the other effects really add to one the fact that this was like it's an adaptation of a graphic novel, so it feels like that, but it also really adds to the video game like feel of it. Um,
yeah. I was getting like that. That's one of the things uh that I like is that it is an adaptation of I think like a 3 or 4 part graphic novel. I think I want to say there's three.
yeah,
Like the text and stuff is like done in a very like it's all in like text boxes. Um, well, like the introductions to that each character has, like every time a new character pops up on screen, it's like name,
yeah,
age, and then like a defining quality about them, and it's in like a very like graphic novel style, like text box that would like appear
right.
when a new character is introduced in like a visual novel. Um,
I completely agree. I think that
Hmm.
actually, before we get too far into the details of this, Smith, why don't you go ahead and give me a rundown of the plot?
oh, okay, so
I guess in case someone hasn't seen it, although I don't know spoilers, I guess for people that haven't seen this, but it is 10 years old at this point, so
right. So Scott Pilgrim is a 22-year-old member of a band with no discernible day job, who starts the film dating a 17-year-old high schooler,
Cool.
um, and event like I don't remember exactly what prompts it. I think he literally just like has a dream and sees a girl like inline skating through his brain, and then he sees her the next day at is it the record shop
he sees her at the library, I think.
at a library, yeah. And then he like falls head over heels in love with her just upon sight, and um, we come to find out that she has a league of 7 evil exes that he has to defeat in order to date her. That he has to defeat all of her exes in hand to hand combat, um, in order to maintain a relationship with her.
Yep.
And throughout this, there is a secondary plot line about he's in a band who is doing a battle of the bands and is trying to get a record deal through this battle of the bands competition.
Yeah. Um, I mean
I,
that's
I don't know if I missed anything. I
no,
probably did.
that's pretty much a good generalization of the plot. Um, which I feel like actually brings me to like the first question I kind of had as I was watching the movie. Now rewatching it, I guess as an older person, um,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize Scott Pilgrim's such a bad guy.
Yeah, that is so. That is. I think that's kind of the point, right? Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is where the manic pixie dream girl concept, like archetype of a character, that's where this is derived from, right?
Yeah, I
Aurora Flowers is like the manic pixie dream.
yeah, pretty much. It's I mean, yeah, it's weird because she like exists pretty much just as like well she like looks and kind of for him is, but like it's weird because she doesn't necessarily have a lot of the other traits, other than like because she's not like that aloof. She's arguably more like aware of the situation than most people are. She just
Well, no,
kind of exists and disappears, but she does serve the purpose of the manic pixie dream girl fully
I
in the
would I
plot.
would I would say that she is relatively aloof. Like her entire like character arc is that she doesn't want to focus on the past. She just wants to live in the here and the now, and nothing else matters until she dates Scott, and Scott gets like ambushed at a Battle of the Bands concert by the first of the League of Evil Exes. Then
Yeah.
she starts to take things more seriously.
Well, right.
But like up to that point, she is very just kind of like, oh, I don't care.
Well, right, it's weird because there's like it definitely starts with her being a manic pixie dream girl, but it's hard like pretty clearly, and I would say like the point where it clearly stops being that situation would be when they're fighting the fourth evil X, and she's actively the one fighting, even though she has to use Scott to do it.
Oh yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Because
I think part of that is so the fourth evil X is a woman.
well, yeah,
And it's we get the whole like, oh, it was just a phase bit, which I mean, I understand this was like what 2008, and I think that
2010.
was 2010. Ooh, okay. I guess that is like a decade ago. But so that trope wasn't like as overdone, or perhaps I'm just kind of misremembering what 2010 media was
well,
like.
and even then, to me, it felt less like them using the trope and more them poking at the trope, because multiple
That's fair.
times before that, Scott keeps referring to them as the evil ex-boyfriends,
Yes, and
she always says exes.
evil exes. Yes.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of clear, and I think it's more a play on the fact that Scott is not really paying attention.
That's fair. But I think the reason that she fights the fourth evil X is mainly because they don't want to make Scott Pilgrim out to just like be somebody who will jump on the opportunity to punch a woman.
Well, right, even though they point kind of to that, I guess, with the guy before, where the third evil X actively punches Knives in the face. He's like, "What? I have no problem punching a girl, like a woman or a girl."
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, I think they. I mean, like the like one of Scott's defining characteristics. And okay, this is actually a complaint I have. Is I think he is like incredibly inconsistent with like what they want his character to be. And it's like so like in the entire like first bit of the movie before he even meets Ramona, he's like dating he's a loser who doesn't have a day job and lives with a friend who shares his bed with him, shares like the like fridge, the TV, all of the like things that go in an apartment or a house are owned by his friend, and his friend lets him live there rent free because, as I mentioned earlier, Scott doesn't have a day job. He doesn't have any kind of job. So he's a loser who is like mooching off of his friends, dating a 17-year-old, and like plays a like rip-off version of Dance Dance Revolution that's just like ninjas instead of like dancing every day. And then he goes to a record store every day. And then the second that he has to he goes to the first battle of the bands competition, and the first evil X comes in, and this dude performs flawless kung fu. This dude doesn't even struggle in this fight until the dude shoots fireballs at him, and then he just he flawlessly whips a symbol at this dude's head and just knocks him out cold. There's I understand that it's video games and whatever, but up to that point, it's like Scott has been this timid little loser, and then the second he has to fight, he is just flawlessly putting this dude in arm locks and doing some sick blocks and punches, and it comes out of nowhere in terms of how his character develops. Just all of a sudden it's oh, by the way, he can do kung fu.
Yeah, I thought the same thing while I was watching it, because I was just kind of why is he so good at fighting? And I guess there's not I guess maybe the ninja video game is kind of maybe a slight explanation, but it isn't really. He's just kind of good at it.
He only moves his feet in that game.
Right? It's just kind of unclear on why he would be so good at it. But at the same time, it's the whole point of the movie, and I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I said, I think the general justification is once he's in that fight, it's video game logic, it's video game rules. You're obviously people can't shoot fireballs and summon evil goth hipster vampire chicks, so whatever.
Right. It seems almost more like it's a fight. It's less as far as his fighting skills, it's more just a visual representation of kind of his feelings for Ramona and how
Yeah,
willing he is to fight for her.
true.
That's
That's
kind of
fair.
more what it is.
That's true. I
Because
guess that's it. I guess that's probably a better way to look at it. Is less as a fight
right,
and more
because
just like a visual representation of like a struggle for the relationship.
right, because even in the case of like the fights, each one of them kind of is in a different like in a different stage of their relationship, and that like the fight kind of at least in some way shows that because like he does most of the fighting for the first one where he's actively fighting for Ramona, and then by the time you get to like the fourth X, Ramona's fighting more for the relationship I think than he is, and that's why she's doing most of the fighting. And then even at the for this fifth and sixth, he's even though he's like kind of dragging his band along, his band's there to help him. So it's kind of like he's getting his friends help with his relationship, I guess. And they're kind of fighting for it. Which, I didn't really think about that until right now, but
yeah, no, I think that might not have been what they're going for, but I think that's a pretty fair assessment of the
see, the problem is with Edgar Wright, it feels like that is what he was going for, and I just wasn't smart enough to pick it up.
so do we want to like walk through each of the fights and like what happens during each of the Evil X fights?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good call.
So I think we already.
You guys a question though.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
There was too many fights.
That's I genuinely probably could have done without the first fight. I think the first
fight's so good.
Yeah, but like, okay. I think the first fight is just very intrusive to the tone of the movie, which is fair because I think that's kind of the point.
But that's the whole point, is that Scott's so wrapped up in what he's doing and not paying attention. He skims the email. Like all of the we're given all the information about the fight before Scott even realizes it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And even then, to be fair, at least two out of there's only 6 fights because the 5th and 6th X are together. Like 2 out of the 6 fights aren't really that much of fights because the 5th and 6th, it's just like the battle of the bands and it's the 2 bands playing each other. And then he doesn't, like, he kind of fights Lucas Lee, but like it's more about him outsmarting Lucas Lee than fighting him. So
yeah, I will say I do kind of agree. I could have done with either the first or fourth fight being a little shorter, or something else kind of happening. Because I do agree. Like I think there might have been like maybe a good like 20 minutes too much of like action.
That's fair. Although you gotta, it's weird because like rewatching it, the first like act of this movie is so condensed in the way it's edited. And you can tell that that's kind of because this movie would have been horribly long otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's already like an hour and 50 minutes. So, like, they're running up against 2 hours. Which is why I think maybe this would have worked better as like a miniseries, or like if they were going to redo it now to do it as a miniseries, like maybe 8 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's really easy to kind of just say that things would be better as miniseries, but I don't know if I am skeptical as to if they have like 8 hours of content. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
well, even then, I'm not.
Each episode an hour long. Like I don't know if they have 8 hours of content.
I don't know. Maybe you don't do it. Maybe you don't do an hour long. Maybe you do like 30-minute ones. My logic was you have the first one, like the first episode, you could meet Ramona, and then I guess. Well, maybe only 7 then, because there's only the 6 other fights. But then you kind of have an X for each episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
So even if they weren't a full hour, if they were like maybe a half an hour. But nowadays, you could, if they were doing it straight to a streaming service, they could make each episode however long it needs to be for pacing.
Okay, so Jards, do you want to walk us through the first Evil X fight? What happens and what the goings on were?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pull it up so I can refresh myself even more.
Okay.
Because the reason why I asked that is because I really felt like the movie in itself felt kind of long to me, and the reason why it is I think that is because like the pacing is fast, but it's like fast for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the movie it slows down kind of post the third X, and I think that I'm not sure how they could have fixed that because it's weird because it feels both slow and fast. I get exactly what Jarts is talking about, where like the beginning's really quick and like really well cut, but then you get kind of to the middle and it's kind of where all the relationship like falling apart stuff is. So it feels very slow, even though I think it's still like edited pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I don't think it's. I think the middle of the movie feels so slowed down, even if it is edited quickly. Like I think the level of editing and the pace of the editing throughout the movie remains very consistent.
Yeah, I
I
think
just
it's
think it's
well edited and
I
well
just
paced. It's just
I just think there's like a pretty big gap between. So the first Evil X fight happens at the Battle of the Bands fight. The second Evil X fight. What is the second Evil X?
it's at the castle. It's on their second date. So pretty much it's like the first date they have a fight, the second date they have a fight,
Oh, it's
and
Chris
then
Evans. The
yeah,
second
it's
Evil X fight
yeah,
is
it's Lucas Lee,
Chris Evans.
Chris
Yeah.
Evans. And then the third, it's basically like each time they kind of have a date or a Battle of the Bands gig, that's when an Evil X fight happens.
My point was like there's Evil X fight number 1, followed almost immediately by Evil X fight number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like a stretch of like, they're getting to know each other and like emotional stuff. And it feels like the movie's slowed down, but I think a lot of it is just because comparatively we just had like 45 minutes of like action fights and like Chris Evans doing like kick flips down stairs and stuff.
See, and that's where I was talking about how like a miniseries might not be a bad idea, just because it would give the movie some of the room to breathe. Because like, while I don't mind how quick paced the movie is, you can feel that they're trying to get that whole like first graphic novel crammed into this 2 hours movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, while I think Edgar Wright did a great job, and I don't think any other director could have probably done a better job of this, it like I do think that's where the movie suffers, is just how much they have to accomplish.
I would love to see a Tarantino directed Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I think that would be an incredible movie.
I don't know.
That would be absolutely incredible.
People aren't going to love me for this, but I don't think Tarantino is the best director for a lot of things.
Oh,
like,
no.
His movies are great, but the idea of him doing that scares me.
I think it would be interesting because of how like it is both in the like similar vein of his genre, because it's like character driven conflict that like is drama and action at the same time, but he like it's generally lighthearted, where Tarantino is generally a lot less like lighthearted in its execution. So, Jarts, have you refreshed your memory on the first?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we actually talked a bit about what all had been going on, but so the fella by the name I can never remember.
Matthew Patel.
Matthew Patel. Yeah.
He comes in, freaking, kind of all out of the blue, and just like is like, all right, we're gonna do the fight now, and then all the meanwhile, he crashes in, soaring through the sky, lands, finger pointing, a little bit of some dramatic scenes, and then he is going in for a very interesting like fist forward and foot forward attack. A definitely all three plant. Goes in for the punch, and then Scott does like the 69 combo on Matt. The thing about
just like flurry of blows, just a bunch of punches.
Yeah, like there's like seemingly no injury, and then it gets kind of Street Fighter style. They line up, and then there's more kung fu karate, and then lastly near the end of the fight, Matthew Patel summons like these 4 or 5 women, background dancer type situation.
Demon hipster chicks
to be his accomplice for this, and start shooting fireballs at Scott Pilgrim, to which, after his bandmates become eliminated,
those are not his bandmates.
It's the other band.
That is the opposing band in the Battle of the Bands. thing that he was there for, which is
But
the
that
reason
band
that they continue on.
That band gets completely obliterated, and Scott throws a cymbal at his head, and the fight concedes.
So this is actually something that I noticed is the reason that the uh, that Scott Pilgrim's band advances on through each stage of the Battle of the Bands competition is because something always happens to the other band. There is always some unfortunate event that happens to the other band, and it's never that they played better. It's just like, so the first time their band dies, the band dies. The second band loses their bassist. We'll get to that, I guess. And then the third band is a Battle of the Evil X's fight.
Well, actually,
so they just kind of
the second one's
stumble
not
their way through.
The second one's not a Battle of the Bands. That's not part of the Battle of the Bands, I don't think.
Was it not?
No, because that's his ex. She just invited him to their show.
Oh, I thought they were going against.
No, they remember because his ex wanted him to be there, so like she invited them to open for their band. So of course.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Although, yeah, they do eliminate that bassist. But just to speed things up a bit, because I don't want us to drag through all these X's too much. Let's kind of do some lightning rounds of these evil X's.
Okay. So the second one is they see
Captain America.
Yeah, Chris Evans, who is an actor in this film, like he plays an actor.
Lucas Lee.
And Scott does a bunch of like cool fighty stuff to his stuntmen, and then realizing he can't beat him in hand-to-hand combat, tricks him into doing. He goads him into doing a grind down an icy rail because he used to be a skateboarder, and he falls off and dies.
Well, he doesn't just fall off. He reaches the end at like 200 and something kilometers per second or something. It's like crazy because they put the little like speedometer display up there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then the third X is Todd Ingram, played by Superman himself, Brandon Routh, who has vegan powers. So he's the bassist for Scott's ex-girlfriend's band, and her current boyfriend, which is, I think that's actually, like, I didn't realize how cool that scene was, where they're just, like, sitting awkwardly across from each other in the sofas, having that, like, I don't know, verbal fight, stare off and fight before they even do the fight. But yeah, long story short, basically, Scott tricks him into drinking some half and half, so he loses his vegan powers.
Okay, he doesn't. Let's break that down a little bit more. He doesn't just lose his vegan powers. The vegan police kick the door in and shoot him with a de-veganizing ring.
Well, right, which I think has only gotten funnier over time.
Yes, that scene is gold.
It's amazing. And it's just like, it's funny. The funniest part has to be the fact that, like, he's like, but I thought I got 3 strikes. And then he had eaten some gelato, which I guess he didn't know wasn't vegan, like, legitimately. And then he had also eaten some chicken parmesan, which
is the least vegan food. If there was a least vegan food, it would be chicken parm.
Well, yeah. Which, it's amazing. And even then, I guess, real quick tangent, I forgot how many, like, I guess at the time they were probably famous, but how many, like, famous people now were in this movie.
Cast is no, I mean, you can't, like, they were still famous. Chris Evans was famous.
Well, yeah, but he was, like, not at that same level. But even then, like, Aubrey Plaza's in there, Anna Kendrick, Brie Larson, who was not nearly as famous then.
Is it May? Isn't the fourth evil X Mae Whitman? Is that her name?
I'm not sure. I meant to look these all up, but I did not.
I'm gonna go ahead and get on that right now.
But yeah, the third evil X is Brandon Routh, who was Superman in the Superman Returns. Yeah, I wrote these all down. Of course, you had Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michael Cera.
Yeah, as yeah.
But yeah, a lot of famous people, and that's just to name some of them. I'm sure there are a million other ones that I didn't write down.
It is in fact Mae Whitman. I am not insane. And May Whitman's like famous now. I don't know what she's been in, but I apparently know her name and her face.
She looked
So
familiar.
she's been in Good Girls. Oh, she was okay. So I know her from Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Okay.
She was like the one like she was like a secondary character in Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think she had a crush on like the main character or something. I could be remembering that wrong.
Unfortunately, I've never seen that.
But she's also been in stuff recently. Good Girls.
Um.
Wait, you've never seen Perks of Being a Wallflower?
No, I just never got around to it, and it's one of those movies where if it was on a streaming service and I needed something to watch, I'd probably watch it, but I just haven't come across it.
That movie that's a good movie.
That is very much a cult classic.
It's not even a cult, no, it's not even a cult classic. Once that movie came out, it was like that book was popular for a long time. It was just like a bunch of sad teenage girls like hopped on that movie the second it came out.
I don't know. I guess I should watch it, but
yeah,
and I will at some point. Just haven't gotten around to it. Back to the Evil X's, I guess.
Right. So
it's weird because after the third one, I feel like they get progressively kind of less important. I guess up until maybe Gideon, but Gideon still doesn't feel that important. At that point, he's just kind of there, I guess, to progress the relationship more so than.
Yeah. So what is really important is the fourth, fifth, and sixth Evil X are defeated by Scott Pilgrim, and then Ramona breaks up with him to get back with Gideon, who is the seventh Evil X, who is the last person that Ramona was dating.
Yes, and also I don't know, is he a producer? What is that? What is his?
He owns a record label.
Yeah, so basically he's the one that's been running the Battle of the Bands, which makes me think that legitimately the entire time he was pulling all of the strings. He made the Battle of the Bands. I don't know why I don't actually think about these things until I start thinking about the movie. But clearly he put together the Battle of the Bands to basically plan when the Evil X's could attack. I guess that would explain why the Evil X's would be able to know where Scott is at any given time.
I don't think that's true because I think in the timeline of the movie they were going to the Battle of the Bands before he met Ramona. Because Knives, his original girlfriend, shows up at their practice for the Battle of the Bands concert, agrees to go to the Battle of the Bands event, and then he meets Ramona and cheats on Knives, and then they both show up at the first Battle of the Bands thing together.
When is the party? Like the party where he meets Ramona, or not when he meets, but when he has his meet cute with Ramona.
It's gotta be because there's like a good bit of time. I think it's before the first Battle of the Bands thing because he meets Ramona, then he like orders something on Amazon and it shows up the next day, and then he goes to the Battle of the Bands thing after he like cheats on Knives with Ramona.
Right.
Like Ramona shows up at his house with a package and he's like, "Hey, we should hang out," and she's like, "Oh, fine, if it'll get you time for the package." They go on a little date. They end up back at Ramona's house, and they do some kissing. No sex happens. They kiss.
Okay. It just seems like way too big of a coincidence that Gideon would be at the top of the Battle of the Bands, just by coincidence.
That is. But I don't think that you can. I don't, unless I like have the timeline completely messed up. I don't think you can frame it as like Gideon was trying to.
Yeah. I guess I'd have to rewatch it again.
Gideon's also like American and like lives in New York was like one of the things, and Ramona used like okay, so this is another thing that really got me through this time watching the movie. Apparently Ramona can go through people's brains to travel.
Yeah.
And that is explained 0 times.
It's explained, I think you're supposed to kind of, even though there's no explanation of it, but like that's why she's in Scott's dream in the first place.
Yeah,
Which it's one of those situations where that's probably why general movie audiences didn't connect with it super well when it came out, because like this movie is kind of considered a cult classic, even though like I think it's more popular than the average one would have been. And I don't think I don't think it's built the cult as much.
I think referring to this movie as a cult classic may be a misnomer. I think it's a niche. Like I said, it is made for a very like niche audience.
All right.
It's not made for it's not made for the general audience, but that doesn't make it a cult classic just because people like it.
All right. It's a situation where I think it's put under the label of one. I wouldn't necessarily call it one, but I don't think that it's necessarily like inaccurate to call it one either, because it wasn't super popular when it came out, and it definitely is more popular now. But it's hard to tell if like it's grown enough for me to call it a cult classic, because generally I think of a cult classic as something that bombed pretty hard when it came out, and then after the fact became really popular.
I'm gonna look up if this movie made its money back in the box office.
I have no
I
idea.
think it did.
You think so?
I don't think it wasn't like a. I don't think it was a flop. I think it was a situation of it just.
Oh, it did. It was down by like $37 million.
Oh yeah, no,
Right.
it did. So the budget was 85, and it made 48 million. So it did bomb. It bombed pretty hard. That's a pretty significant. I don't think any of Edgar Wright's other movies bombed that hard. Baby Driver made like 230 million.
All right, and that's part of the thing about it is that's why I think it's classified as a cult classic.
I can't imagine it was 230 million.
No, I can't imagine.
Hot Fuzz made 80 million. And like...
All right, and to be fair, I mean it's. I don't think that it's Edgar Wright's best movie, but I don't think that it's significantly weaker than any of his other ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think that this movie is weak by any means. I think it is. It falls to a very niche subsection of most crowds. That's like people who enjoy video games and also enjoy romance and also enjoy action.
That's true.
Like you're not going to appeal to the general person who like sits down to watch like a rom-com or a drama with this movie because it's way too fast-paced and actiony, and there's way too much like stuff going on that's not immediately relevant to the relationship and drama. But similarly, you're not going to appeal to the people that want to watch an action movie because this movie does really hone in. Like, I mean, I think at its core, it is just like a love movie or a relationship movie, drama movie, whatever you want to frame it, that has interspersed fight scenes. There's no like real dramatic, like cool one-liners or like explosions. There's just like occasional video game-esque fight scenes.
There are some like they're not cool one-liners. I think it's quite the opposite. They specifically put one-liners in that are not good.
That are lame, yeah. That are like be gone, vegan, or something like that.
Yeah. You might be a vegan, but now you're gonna be gone. I think is about what he says.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's stuff like that where I think that I don't know. I think it's really interesting how this movie manages to like take a rom-com and like video games and all like and like even then I don't know what else like a kind of like a music like a band themed kind of movie and kind of mixes them all together and uses their tropes but without being just the trope.
That is actually something that I think needs talked about is there are legitimate songs made specifically for this movie. Like the Battle of the Bands bits are not just kind of like background noise to a conversation that's taking place. They are like full-fledged and played out songs that are inserted into this. It has a legitimate soundtrack.
Well, right, which is not necessarily that new to Edgar Wright's movies, because all of Edgar Wright's movies use music like very distinctly as a part of the movie. The one that makes this different is that they're kind of like original songs. So like,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
But it's like it's interesting how I guess in theory like this movie probably if it was released today I think it would be way more successful than it was back when it was released just because I think the movie-going audience is probably a little bit more likely to like the general audience is more likely to see something weird like this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I mean,
disagree with that. I am like almost on the exact opposite side of that viewpoint. Is I think that that general admission movie tickets are expensive enough that people are not willing to see something unless they can be assured that it is like backed by something that they like. Like people will spend movie tickets on Marvel, they'll spend movie tickets on like Star Wars, on already established IPs. And I don't think that, and although that Scott Pilgrim versus the World is an already established IP, it has a graphic novel. I don't think that that IP is big enough that you're going to draw people.
Well, my thing is inherently, I think that you would attract those people because one, this movie, like people would see this movie, and even though it's not a Marvel movie, they've been kind of trained to go see Marvel movies. So, like, if you said based off of a graphic novel, and then people also know more people, I guess, know who Edgar Wright is now because of Baby Driver. So, like, you could use those as selling points, and I think the general audience would be more likely to go than they
I
would have
also
10 years ago.
would want to say that kind of just based slightly because of the graphic novel bit of it, kind of the appeal there.
Yeah, people like comic
I
book
think
movies.
that I I think that well, not only that, I think that recently there's been a little bit more uh, auditing of the general audience that like anime and those types of like that type of video content, and I think that this movie could also appeal to some variety. But I also feel like this movie would also do a lot better if it was released, I don't know, a couple of years after Shark Boy and like for some reason, those two movies, or like this movie and Shark Boy and Lava Girl, I think they go hand in hand.
Oh my gosh, that's like the
Okay.
big. That's the most offensive thing you could say.
Yeah, that is a very bold stance. I understand where you're coming from.
You have
but
to
you're
understand too
wrong.
that like
You're wrong, bud.
I understand that people will probably be like very like maybe that's like way out of left field. Maybe
Is this
that's
going to be
way
your
out of
bit? Or are you just going to compare every movie to Shark Boy and Lava Girl? Like,
That's not no.
I got some
no.
real big Shark Boy and Lava Girl undertones from The Godfather Part 2.
Well,
Well, they are pretty
that
similar.
would be pretty good. But no, I mean the only reason I say that, and this is like also why I've been quiet most of the night, is you guys know a lot more about cast and character and character development. And I'm like, I went to the movies like a couple times. So,
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess my question, Charts, would be: do you like Coke Zero?
I do not like Coke Zero.
Because I get the sense that this movie might have been sponsored, well, might have had a product placement from Coke Zero.
You think so? You think Coke Zero might have dipped their finger in here a little bit?
Because think about it, like when he's at the party,
No,
he talks about how he
you're
drinks
right.
Coke
You're
Zero,
100% correct.
and then when he goes to fight Gideon, he's like, hey, have a Coke Zero, and like there's actively a Coke Zero like can on the thing. So even though I don't think they got like a bunch of money from Coke, I think maybe
Coke
they were like,
definitely
we'll throw some Coke Zero in here.
I gotta say though, too, when we talked about the budget for this movie, the fact that this movie's budget was like $85 million is like astonishingly high.
That's really honestly pretty low by modern standards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about when I was looking through when I was perusing the Wikipedia page for things about Edgar Wright, this person mentioned a little bit ago. Like his previous film, he had like an $8 million budget, and it did like significantly more.
Well, yeah, part of that's because those were, I don't want to say British movies, but they were British movies. So you had like, because it's like we're talking about like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, where the whole thing is kind of that they are cheap.
Yeah. That's so. If you've never seen Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead charts, they are remarkably low production.
They're really good. They're
They're
arguably
really
his
good
best
because
movies, but
the entire like plot of the movie is like super low editing, with a bunch, or not super low editing, but like super low effects. Like there's not a whole lot of makeup on anybody. There's not like any special effects. It's for the most part two dudes just kind of running around, and so
I'm
you don't have to pay a lot of money for that.
because like to my knowledge, this was Scott Pilgrim was kind of his big like his first big blockbuster.
Right, his first like American, like
Which is probably
yeah.
unfortunate because while I think Scott Pilgrim is a really good movie and I don't think it's any significant like I don't think it's really worse than any of his other movies. I think it's just different, but I don't think that helped because I think like before when you're making like an $8 million movie or whatever and then you make 80 million off of it, it's like that doesn't translate to a blockbuster because like even though Scott Pilgrim's really good, it is weird and it came out in 2010. People weren't necessarily going to go see it.
What? Hold on. I'm going to see what other movies came out in 2010.
Even Baby Driver was $30 million budget, and it made $190 million.
Right, and part of that I think is that pretty much because like you got to think about it. Edgar Wright, before doing this, he would have been signed on to the Ant-Man, so then he probably left Ant-Man to do this. Which is fine because him and Marvel didn't agree on what they wanted to do because, and it's a shame because I think that everyone would have liked to have seen Ant-Man by Edgar Wright, but that was before the MCU because they started that in like 2004, and of course the MCU started in like 2008, 2000. So we started filming like 2007, 2006. So it's not surprising that he left just because basically he signed on before they had established the universe. But like in 2010, you're talking about like Iron Man 2 level of MCU.
I'm looking up movies that came out in 2010 just to kind of get a idea of what this would have been competing against in box offices, just kind of based off. I don't know when it was released, but assuming it was a blockbuster, the popular movies would have been released at like the same time, and we got like Inception, Grown Ups, Tangled, Insidious, The Social Network, Black Swan, Alice in Wonderland. I think those movies, on a large part, have a just better appeal. It's way easier to get people to see Alice in Wonderland and like Tangled, and then once people started seeing Inception, like Inception is one of the like most influential films in like the past decade or so on like how people like that stupid like wah sound is just in everything now. It's in every movie.
Well, because even then, I just looked it up, and this movie came out like in August. So we're talking about it wasn't even during the summer or during May. It was kind of at the end of summer where people are going back to school, seeing less movies. So that's not going to help it either.
Probably plays a part, yeah.
And I'm not trying to like make a defense of why this movie didn't make money because it doesn't matter. I was looking it up earlier, and of course, Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead have both talked about how they would love to come back to do another movie. It's unlikely that it would ever happen, but it's weird because you do get the sense that they at least thought about doing a sequel when they were making this.
So that's the ending to me felt, I don't know, it's not like it's I don't even like it does feel open-ended, but it also just kind of feels like a nice kind of tie off to like the story, right? Because like he beats all the evil exes and he goes with Ramona like through one of the like weird space-timey doors that Ramona can open. So like the implication is that they're just kind of off doing their own thing now. And you could obviously make another movie about that, but I just like about what?
All right, and I haven't read the graphic novels, so I don't know where in the graphic novels this ends. I would assume it's probably the end of the first one. I would assume, but I don't know.
I can read them and get back to you.
I mean, you don't have to do that. I don't care. Well, because even then, I know that they originally they had done a test audience where they had him end up with knives, I believe, and test audiences did not care for that.
Bro, I would have the entire I don't know how you can frame a 22-year-old ending up with a 17-year-old high schooler as the good ending.
Well, right, and I think the idea is, to be fair, there's a certain level of it would make, I guess, more logical sense for him to end up with knives, but it's kind of like, why was he fighting for Ramona this whole time then?
I'm just not super into like the whole like. Listen, I understand age is just a number, but a number can end you in prison. You can go to jail for that number.
All right.
I'm not super comfortable with framing
All right.
framing that relationship as like,
And I don't think that that helps them.
unless they did frame it as like a like ooh like maybe this wasn't the best decision on Scott's part.
Right. And I'm not sure because I haven't seen it. I feel like that might have been a deleted scene that's you can watch somewhere, but that could just be making that up. But I feel like I've seen this movie a lot of times and I've seen a lot of people talk about it.
No, on the Wikipedia page, there is a script screenshot. A script clip.
There's a script screenshot on Wikipedia.
Yes, a script clip.
But yeah, well, I know that they definitely there was at least an idea for him to end up with knives. I'm just not sure if they filmed it or not, or released it.
What are you seeing, Garrett? Tell me what you're seeing.
If you go to Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and then you go down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna look it up, but just like tell me what you're seeing on that.
Okay, so that actually just shows the new ending. In the film's original ending, written for the final Scott book, Scott gets back together with Knives. O'Malley objected to the first ending because he felt it would dilute Knives' character. After the first book in the series in which Scott and Ramona got back together was released, and with divided audience reaction to the film's original ending, a new ending was filmed to match the book.
Yeah.
O'Malley helped write the new ending, and Wright called Knives actress Ella Wong beforehand, thinking she might be disappointed at the change, but finding that she liked the idea. The final ending was shot 3 months before the film was released. Wright says that it is his preferred ending. The film was given a production budget of 85 to 90 million, an amount offset by tax rebates, and a final cost around 60 million.
So even then, it wasn't as much of a flop as it seems.
Yeah,
I guess
still $12 million. That's still the cost of what, like a F-16?
Well, right. Well, it did make its money back, but it's not as. But it's not as bad. Although that doesn't account necessarily for marketing. I don't know whether or not the number you threw out there does, because normally when you account for marketing, you about double the budget. But I can't imagine that on Scott Pilgrim they would have spent double the budget on marketing.
I don't know why you would.
All right.
That was kind of my point when I was talking about like I don't know if you can like if releasing this movie like more recently would make it better. Is like I think there is a dedicated group of people that would see Scott Pilgrim. And I don't think that advertising it is going to get people to see this movie. Like the people who want to see this movie are going to go see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're not going to win somebody over by showing them like, a clip of Scott Pilgrim. It's like they were either interested or they weren't.
I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that the movie going audience nowadays is like you're getting more kind of out there stuff. Both on Netflix and like actually in theaters, so I think that the movie-going audience is more likely to see something that looks weird from a trailer, especially if if you say it's based off of a comic book and stuff. They're probably more likely to see it now. I don't know that it would have been significantly more likely to do well. I just think that it potentially could have. But yeah, I mean we're over an hour, so I don't know if we want to start wrapping things up.
I think we've kind of exhausted the conversation.
The thing is that we need to review, give a score for this film, for this artistic media that we are discussing.
We need to each give our own independent rating. But Jarts, what exactly are we going to rate this out of? What is our rating scale?
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you guys, because each podcast usually has its own thing, that own scale that it makes up. Doesn't usually stick with 0 to 10,
okay.
0 to 100. I've seen food review channels that review thing from a ooh to a yum yum. I don't know if we're doing. I don't know if we're doing a yum yum scale or doing classic scale.
I think it's best that we each just kind of give our own unique take on a rating scale. And I will start. I'm going to give this movie 4 out of 5 Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I am. I'd probably only give this like a 6-ish out of 10.
Okay.
I just didn't really. It's not like it was bad, but I just wasn't very into it.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was pretty good.
Nice. Okay. I'm glad we can come to a consensus there.
But yeah,
I think on a whole, like, we all enjoyed the movie, except for maybe Jared, who thought it was
yep.
not.
Well, it's like for me, I just don't think that it has a lot of rewatch value. Was it fine sitting through watching it? Like, yes, there are some quips and things that I like, but like, it isn't something that I would be like, oh, you should probably really check that out.
That's
Or,
okay. Okay, I get that.
You know, it's like it doesn't stand out to me as a great film, but it doesn't stand out to me as one that's like, this was not good.
Not good.
But yeah. Then I think that pretty much wraps up Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I guess let us know if you enjoyed this or if you didn't. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the future, because I can't imagine that we're gonna stop doing this immediately.
Immediately.
But other than that, thanks for listening to the J Cubed podcast, and we'll see you next time. Recording, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start with an intro. Hopefully this recording doesn't sound terrible because we're only gonna do the one take. If I go to edit it, oh my gosh, yeah, 2 takes. Hey guys, I don't know if you're listening, but this is the second take of this podcast.
Yeah.
We already recorded the whole thing. This is the second one.
That's what the intro should be. Is like, all right, and take 17.